Join me now, the Shadow International Trade Secretary, Barry Gardiner. Mr Gardiner, very good morning to you. We will be talking a lot about trade in just a moment, but I just want to pick up on something that our reporter, our political correspondent Lewis Goodall has been looking at today, momentum and the influence that it has on the party. What do you make of them?
Well, they're a group of people who have joined the Labour Party because they're enthused by the manifesto, and that's a very, very good thing. We are now the largest party, the largest political party in the whole of Western Europe, over 500,000 members. That's about democracy in action, and that has to be a good thing.
But do you recognise the characterisation of them as Jeremy Corbyn's Praetorian Guard, this accord that people are being asked to sign in order to kind of gain momentum approval? And what purpose does that serve apart from their own?
Look, you know, I think it's a very strange day if politicians become afraid of the electorate, afraid of the people. We have very clear processes in the Labour Party. It's called a manifesto. That's what we all sign up to, you know, when it comes to a general election. So I don't see a problem with people within the party, whether they're from the right or from the left, whether it's prospect or progress or momentum, actually campaigning on the issues that within the Labour Party, within that broad spectrum that we are, they campaign just as everybody else does for the things that they believe in. That's what a political party should be about. It should be about principle and values.
The criticism has always been that there was always a place for, you know, serial rebel Jeremy Corbyn within the broad church of Labour. Now there is a feeling on the part of some who are identified variously as centrist dads or Blairites or whatever, that they are being marginalised or even pushed out of posts that they have held. I mean, I presume that's not a characterisation you recognise.
Look, on a day when most of our major newspapers are leading with people like Patience Wheatcroft, the Conservative peer in the House of Lords, warning the Prime Minister about bullying, when we've seen in the papers this week Conservative MPs being threatened with death threats. You're talking to me about people within the Labour Party
It's 2 minutes of an interview, Mr Gardiner. Okay.
No, sure.
I mean, you mentioned the papers there. A really striking poll in The Independent on Sunday today, signalling 51% support to remain in the European Union, 41% to leave. What's your assessment of that?
My assessment of that is that the referendum was conducted on a 50% +1 basis, and that was a very shaky basis to do any referendum. Because actually, if you want to establish the settled will of the population for the next 25 or 40 years, you should have had a threshold. But we are where we are, and no politician went out on the doorstep and said to people, look, please come out and vote on Thursday. It'd be nice to know what you think. We went out on the doorstep and we said, please, you have to vote on Thursday. It's essential. This is going to shape the future of our country for the next 40 or 50 years. And that is why the referendum is now about making sure that we carry out the democratic will as expressed by the people.
But what if that trend continues? What if, as you suggest, we maybe got towards a 60 or 65% of the population wanting to remain within the European Union? At that point, doesn't the issue of a second referendum rather become live?
Well, you see, last week a very important debate took place in Parliament, and we won a very important vote. And that was that members of Parliament should have a meaningful final vote on the nature of the deal. And that is what the government now has to give to Parliament. And actually those who campaigned very strongly for leave should welcome that, because what they argued for was to take control back from Europe and to give it to the Parliament of the United Kingdom. It wasn't to give it to the Prime Minister, it wasn't to give it to any faction within her cabinet. And what we're seeing is now the working out of those two factions in her cabinet, some who want to go for a Norway-style deal, the others who'd like to take us a bit further west to Canada. And we're seeing that absolutely drive a wedge through the Conservative Party.
Indeed, a wedge which clearly doesn't necessarily exist within the Labour Party. We've got a pretty good idea of what you want as an end state. Really close alignment with the European Union, not in the customs union, but perhaps a customs union. A fair assessment?
We haven't swept either the single market or a customs union off the table. We said we're not fixated on the structures. What we want are the benefits. I think, though, if you look at the way in which the Conservative Party, they are absolutely riven on this issue of the Court of Justice, the European Court of Justice, and whether it is going to have sway over the UK over the next 8 years. That is a dividing line within the Conservative Party. So is the unity of the United Kingdom. The unity of the United Kingdom demands that Northern Ireland and the rest of Great Britain are treated in exactly the same way.
As we saw on Thursday night, there is a growing there is a degree of growing consternation with the position that the Labour Party has. We see the European Union as our greatest ally. We want to continue to trade with them as closely as possible, on terms as closely aligned as possible. We want to see, what was the phrase, easy movement of EU nationals. The Labour Party is not terribly annoyed about ECJ oversight. I mean, simply put, what's the point of us leaving the European Union if that's the end state that you want?
Look, the point is this. We have to preserve our economy and our jobs. And in order to do that, we need to make sure that we are closely aligned with our major trading partner. When Wilbur Ross came over from the United States and spoke to the CBI just a few weeks ago, he said, look, if you want a good trade deal with the USA, you're going to have to move away from the alignment that you have, the regulatory alignment that you have with the EU, and you've got to align yourselves more with us. The very next week... Sorry, hang on, because I'm answering your question.
You've avoided it.
No, I haven't actually.
You said a couple of moments ago...
If you let me finish, Niall, I will answer your question.
The public vote had to be respected. In what way is easy movement of EU nationals, ECJ oversight,
so what's the point?
Trading on the same terms, in what way is that Brexit?
I'm trying to explain to you the importance of alignment is that each country that we seek to do a trade agreement with demands that we align our rules with theirs. And therefore, it makes sense to say that you have to align your rules with the party with which you wish to have as your major trading partner. That is the European Union. 44% of our trade is with the European Union, and that's why a close alignment with them is necessary. Nobody disputes that.
Which is but one model of the end state. There is another model which suggests that actually we would be rather better if we could take control of our own laws, if we didn't have ECJ oversight, if we can actually bring a proper end to freedom of movement for EU nationals. All of those things, under your plan, wouldn't be the case.
No, look, you've given an alternative view. Let me now try and debunk it, okay? Because actually what that alternative view is dependent upon is precisely the sort of things that Michael Gove today in the newspapers has come out and said he's going to argue for tomorrow, which is an end to the Working Time Directive. These are the regulations that, under that model that you've just put forward, all the rights that we have at work, all the security and safety standards, all the environmental protections, they're the things that go under that model. And that is why, as a Labour government, we would not go down that route. It's not acceptable for us to lower labour standards and environmental protections under any deal.
That is a fair position to take, but very, very quickly, because we're running out of time. There is a simple way of sorting this out, and that is a second referendum in which both those points, those end states, could be put to the public. Can you conceive of circumstances in which there is a second referendum?
Look,
please give me a yes, no on that one at least.
The Labour Party has not said that we'll have a second referendum. We will honour the referendum result, but we last week got a final vote for Parliament on the deal. That is the democratic guarantee that now is there because of Labour members of Parliament and 11 Conservatives joining with us.
Barry Gardiner, many thanks for being with us.